Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, concerns that the state's wildfire season is starting earlier than usual. A new report criticizes the governor's moratorium on new state regulations, and Phoenix Art Museum Director Jim Ballinger talks about his decision to retire. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The Arizona Court of Appeals today ruled that Republican lawmakers do have the constitutional standing to challenge last year's expansion of Medicaid. Lawmakers had argued that the expansion required a 2/3 majority vote due to the plan's assessment on hospitals. The legislature wound up passing the plan with a simple majority. The governor says she considers today's ruling procedural and not focused on the merits of the case. She says she'll go to the state Supreme Court if necessary to protect Medicaid expansion as it now stands. A dry winter is leading to an early start of the wildfire season in Arizona. For more on what we can expect in the next few months is KTAR reporter Jim Cross, who's covered wildfires in Arizona for many years. In fact, I remember talking to you up there at the Rodeo Chetasky fire on the scene up there, which was what, 2002?
2002, July of 2002.
And since then we've had bigger fires and we've had deadlier fires for sure. Is this expected now every year?
Well, since 2002, we've had 9 of the state's largest fires, top 10 largest fires on record just since 2002. Rodeo Fire was the second, until Wallow is the biggest, and that was in 11 at 535,000 acres. They seem to be getting more dangerous every year. Last year was, of course, the deadliest year we've ever had with the Yarnell, Granite Mountain hotshots dying up there, but they seem to be getting more dangerous every passing year.
So what are we seeing about 2014?
We're early, about a month early right now. The conditions are what they should be in mid-May. We have 5 of the 6 national forests under fire restrictions. Coronado and southeastern Arizona will probably be within a matter of days. Much of the state lands are under fire restrictions, BLM. Most of that will be under restrictions by the end of the week. Some of the conditions I'm hearing about in the high country, they're comparing this with 2002. Based on this, some of the fire commanders are telling me that the down lumber they're doing core samples on is drier than stuff you would find at a Home Depot or a Lowe's. That wood, kiln-dried lumber, has more moisture in it right now than they're seeing on the ground.
Now, what have we seen so far in terms of fires? I know something Sierra Vista, Flagstaff, little spots here and there. How big have those fires been?
The one by Flagstaff, Fisher Fire, was 175 acres. They got on it pretty quick and knocked it out. You had a 500 or 600 acre fire near Sierra Vista last weekend, lightning caused, that they got on top of. The one that was a concern was a 200 acre brown fire in the Sierra Vista, the Huachuca Mountains above Sierra Vista. They sent a Type 1 team down there, the same team that handled the Yarnell fire last year that knocked that fire out. They sent that team down there for a 200 acre fire, so they're hitting these fires early and hard.
What kind of resources are out there? And I asked the question because California, as bad as things are here, they're worse in California,
Yes.
and they are expecting major fires over there. With that kind of attention to California, what's happening over here?
Right now we're in good shape. We have plenty of manpower. We can always tap into more manpower nationally. They have plenty of air tankers right now. California, we're in the bullseye right now, Arizona is, and we're going to be for weeks. But California is in such horrific shape right now, it's almost inevitable that they're going to go up, and we're going to see very large fires in California this spring and summer.
As far as Arizona is concerned, are we more concerned about the high country? Are we more concerned about lowlands, desert, grasses? What's the major concern?
I think they're concerned about everything. The timber, we had 1/3 of the snowpack, approximately 1/3 of the snowpack we should have had. We've had 2 rainstorms in the valley and around southern Arizona since mid-December, and just enough to grow more stuff that's now drying out and it's going to burn. The timber's been in bad shape for days, and again, the forests are going into restrictions, campfire and smoking restrictions. This one's going to all be on people this spring and summer, at least until the monsoon gets here.
I know it seems in the past, if you had a good winter rainy season to a certain degree, it seemed like you would worry a little bit more about the grasslands and desert areas because they would grow things that you wouldn't ordinarily grow, dry out quicker, boom, there you go.
True.
If it's drier than usual, you're concerned, it seems like you would be concerned more with the high country because they're just not getting the snowpack. And as we talked earlier, the weather has changed, hasn't it? I mean, it's different than it had been in the past.
I have never seen a winter, well, if you can call it a winter, like this. We went almost from fall directly to spring. We had very little winter, very little snowpack, very little rain. we're approaching 100 degrees. This time of year. The windstorm today was probably the worst fire danger we've been in all year, with all the wind, still is.
But Jim, that's the nature. I mean, April and May are always the high wind months, and then you got June and July with the high temperature months. Then you hope the monsoon gets there quickly, but the monsoon's a problem itself because of the lightning strikes.
Because of the lightning, and they say that the El Nino is building up, the warming of the Pacific Ocean waters, which could bring us a pretty strong winter with a lot of rain and snow. But some of the weather guys are telling me that El Nino buildup is starting to maybe pull some steam out of what would have been, at least a moderate monsoon. So we'll see what happens with that.
Oh my goodness. As far as the firefighting community is concerned, the mood after last year, what are you sensing out there? And have any procedural changes been put in place due to the Yarnell Hill tragedy?
They're very hesitant to tell us, and certainly to tell us what took place after Yarnell as far as changes, because there are many, many lawsuits remaining out there. But they are going to try GPS tracking systems on some of the firefighters that they would carry. They're going to test those out, them and the Forest Service. We're seeing already that they are hitting fires very hard, very early on, i.e. the Brown Fire in Sierra Vista. When I heard a Type 1 team was going down there, that was a surprise, because that is the best of the best teams, and they hammered that fire, just knocked it out.
But again, as far as the mood is concerned overall, I imagine the attention to detail a little more pronounced maybe than, although it's always there, but I would imagine there's an extra emphasis this go around.
Certainly. I mean, you can't go through a tragedy like they went through last year and not have changes. And certainly, in the way they do things and the way they emotionally fight fires.
Yeah, well, all right. We'll see how it goes. Again, what you're saying, though, is it's going to be pretty rough and pretty early.
We're really set up right now for a bad fire season. They're as bad as I've seen in Arizona.
All right, Jim, it's always a pleasure. Good to have you here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. The Grand Canyon Institute is out with a new report that's critical of the governor's moratorium on new regulations. Grand Canyon Institute fellow Karen Smith is here to talk about the study. Welcome to the program. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And you wrote this study. What was the actual focus?
Well, the focus, Ted, was really on the state's regulatory moratorium. And for those of our listeners who may not know what that means, we do rules, state agencies do rules to implement laws. That's what they do. And so what happened with this moratorium was in 2009, the governor issued a stop, essentially, on nearly all regulations. So, except for those for public health and safety. So what we were interested in seeing was, what was behind that? What was really behind that? She had claimed that they were job killers, and she is not alone in that. There are many people who believe that. And so the emphasis of our report was really to look at, was that true?
How do you look at something like that?
What we did in our analysis was take a time period. We took 2000 to 2012. We looked at all the regulations that had been approved in Arizona by year, and then we sort of looked at that against the background of Arizona's economy to see where job growth was happening and the state of the economy generally. And all of the regulation that occurred in Arizona occurred during a decade of really robust economic growth.
I was going to say, the previous governors, Hull, Napolitano, what did we see as far as regulations during their administrations compared to this moratorium with Governor Brewer?
One of the really interesting things that we discovered in our work was that about 30% of all the regulations that were approved during this 12-year time period occurred during Governor Hull's administration. She had 1/4 of the study period. And 40% of all the environmental regulations took place during Governor Hull's administration. I think that's something that a lot of people would find surprising. Governor Napolitano was governor for 6 years of our 12-year study period. I think not a surprise that about half of the regulations took place during her administration.
Now, your report says that the public could be at risk because of this moratorium, especially on environmental regulations, but regulations in general. Is the public at risk?
I think at risk is probably a bit strong. I think what we have said in our report was that these moratoriums can cause harm, and they can cause harm in a couple of different ways. It prevents state agencies from updating their rules to operate both in a current environment and making sure they can operate in a future environment. You may remember the Board of Medical Examiners had some difficulties a few months ago. One of the reasons that they had difficulties was that their rules were outdated and that they were operating in that kind of an outdated environment. Certainly not the main reason for their troubles, but it was a reason. So that's one reason. A second reason that these moratoriums are harmful is that they create an anti-regulatory bias that essentially paints all regulation as bad, and that's trouble going forward.
So when the governor's office says that that the state agencies now, because of this moratorium, that they are more efficient, and this moratorium helped turn Arizona's economy around from the bad old days here not too long ago, how would you respond?
I would say that I would love to see the evidence for that. That's what I'd like to see, because clearly the evidence that we saw does not suggest that that is the case.
And the evidence that you saw does not suggest that there's an added burden on the private sector when you talk about regulations, and that a moratorium on regulations, or at least a radical easing, helps create jobs and helps retain jobs. Just not seeing that?
We didn't see that having this regulatory moratorium had much of an effect on job growth at all. And in fact, when we looked at the early part of our study period, we had very robust growth at the same time that we had very robust regulatory activity.
Now, I know that in the study, environmental regulations were at the forefront. Other regulations were considered as well, though, correct?
Yes.
Which ones were those?
We looked at all of the approved regulations that had taken place from 2000 to 2012, and these run the gamut from the big major agencies like the Department of Health Services and Access to the little boards and commissions like the Barber Board and the Cosmetology Board. All of those agencies, boards, and commissions do rules. So what we were interested in seeing with all of the regulations was, first, how many, where were they occurring, and when were they occurring? In which administrations did we see more of this occurring? And what the Arizona story suggests is that most of the regulation that we have comes from Health and Human Services. That's not surprising. The second largest area, transportation. That's also not surprising. The third largest area, environment, but very low in the scheme of things.
All right. And real quickly, the Grand Canyon Institute. Talk to us about the Institute.
Grand Canyon Institute is a new centrist think tank. It is a nonpartisan group made up of former elected officials, many Republicans, many Democrats, then others, some academicians, some economists. So it is a a group that really is focused on a centrist way of looking at public policy.
All right. Well, we thank you for joining us to tell us about the report. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Tonight's edition of Arizona Art Beat focuses on a major player in the development of the arts in Arizona. Phoenix Art Museum Director Jim Ballinger recently announced his retirement after 40 years with the organization. Ballinger joins us now to talk about his decision and his career. Good to see you again.
Ted, good to see you.
40 years. How many? 32
Seems like yesterday.
32 as a director, correct?
Yeah, almost 33. So.
And so you're stepping. Why now?
Well, I think it's just it's a math problem basically. 40 years at the museum, 33 years as director, and then there's an 8th grandchild on the way, and it's kind of like maybe it's time for somebody else to have fun. And it's not something you can do immediately when you've led something this long. So I wanted to make sure not only am I announcing a retirement, but asking the board to put a succession process in play, and also to make sure we have a great transition, which could take a year or more.
I was going to ask, how long could that
take?
take?
Don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I'm in there to make it go well, because just like the board has their responsibility, I've been there a long time. We've all seen a great institution move forward, and we want to keep the momentum going for new and great things with someone else.
Was this a difficult decision?
At first it was, but then it started getting easier all along, I think, as you really start looking at what's the right thing to do and what you've got left. I mean, I've been invested in this community for a long time, and Linda and I aren't going anywhere, and we're going to stay involved in many ways, I'm sure.
You started in 1974 with the museum as curator of collection. What brought you here?
My job. I had 2 job opportunities coming out of graduate school. One was in North Carolina at the museum there. It was state run. There was a small recession then. They froze that job, so I had a choice, Phoenix or no job.
And we're looking at the new face right there. And that is a young face, mister. And
I had a 5-year plan that I was going to be here 5 years as curator, do a lot of shows, and then go to a real museum. But instead, you know what? We had the joy of building one over all these years.
And you were named director, I believe, in '82, correct?
Correct.
And all things considered, did you see, when you first got here, when you were named director, when you had all that hair, did you think you'd be here this long?
No clue, no plan. And probably 10 years ago, there was a moment where you thought, okay, either you're in it for the long term, or it's time to perhaps look for greater challenges. But Ted, every time here I looked for greater challenges, we always just brought them and built them. And I think it's probably true of a lot of people in Phoenix. The growth is staggering. Few cities have gone through what we've gone through. So when I started, we had 17 staff members. We had a budget of $364,000. Now it's $11.5 million, and it's just so each time there would have been that thing to go do somewhere else.
Right.
We just did it here instead. So it was great.
You had 72,000 square feet when you started. It's 4 times that amount right now. You're more than a museum director, though. I mean, you're a big player in downtown Phoenix. Talk about what you've seen change in downtown. The good, the bad, the in-between.
I don't know that there's a lot of bad, unless you just call the slow.
Yeah.
We've always known that we needed a really active downtown. When Mayor Goddard had a great plan that didn't quite get funded way back, could have been a great fulcrum, and now with ASU down here, it's huge. But arts and culture are a big player, and I think we may not do a good enough job of letting people know how important arts and culture are to a lot of different things. It's now starting to happen. Mayor Stanton certainly grasps that, as does President Crow at ASU. So you're seeing it play out in a lot of different ways. But when you look back, the bond elections that have happened have been crucial to ASU. They have been crucial to arts and culture, not only in downtown, but across the community. The one thing I do believe we've got to do, we've got to get to a position of a new dedicated funding source for arts and cultures if we are going to have anything transformative happen in this arena. There's just not enough corporate giving, there's not enough tax capabilities, and frankly, there's not enough philanthropic ability within the state, because we have so many needs and we're so new that it's got to be ASU, arts and culture, human services, environmental issues, all those, and
Right.
it's quite often the same people are helping all the time.
Right.
So we've really got to figure out a bigger plan on how to go at it.
As far as the museum is concerned, your vision when you took over way back there in 1982, what was your vision? Has that vision panned out?
You know, I think we've gone beyond what my vision was in many ways. My first task, I thought, was to professionalize the museum. And that's not to say it wasn't before, but it was a way of creating measurement, creating metrics that we could grow the institution, also that we could get Phoenix on the map nationally. We weren't at all. So I spent a lot of time talking to colleagues nationally to bring shows. So that was the first phase. And then we got the building first expansion done, and then it was how do we bring bigger exhibitions and to bring great art from all over the world to the people of Arizona, which we see as a daily mission, and that became kind of that second phase.
Did you get any advice early on that kind of stuck with you over the years? And second question, what advice now would you give your successor?
Well, I operated one way that my colleagues couldn't believe what I did over the years. That when we faced a problem with the board, because we were a new board, we're a new city, I'm a director my experience was here. I reached out to the very best directors in the country on whatever the issue was and asked them to come and address our board of trustees.
Yes.
Well, my colleagues thought I was insane. Why would you bring a star in to make you look bad? Because then you're bored. And I just wasn't on my radar screen. I thought, we need help to get the very best to come in. So I did that many times over the years and would continue to do so. And I would advise anyone in any field to do that. But you have to be confident yourself to do that, and you have to have the confidence of your board to do that. In order, because when you ask for somebody advice, Bud Jacobson told me years ago, ask me for advice, you have to take it. Otherwise, ask me for input.
Oh, I like that. So challenges now, you've talked about it, trying to get a dedicated funding source for just the arts in general, looking for the philanthropic folks, which has changed. And you've been here long enough to realize that has changed, hasn't it? The major players, the people that have a stake in this community, they're not here anymore.
Right. But you know, I mean, you'll stand back and look, the Musical Instrument Museum is here, the Children's Museum. There are new museums that are doing great jobs here. Phoenix Art Museum's growing, the Science Center's growing, on and on and on. But we're all facing the same issue. We're tapped out, we're stressing, and if you are the size of any of these institutions and get a 5 or 10% boost, you're not going to transform the museum in our case. So that's where that's very, very important, and it's important that that group keep working together, which we're doing very well in the last few years, in order to make sure that that kind of message gets out there in many, many ways. Education, economic development, these are things that for the future of this state, this community, depends on quality workers. We're part of that. Depends on strong economic environment. We're part of that. And I don't think people sometimes think that way. We're not an add-on extra.
Why aren't people thinking that way?
Well, I think, again, that comes back around to our responsibility. We don't do a good enough job in our field, perhaps, of establishing some of those parameters and making them well known. If you look at schools now where the arts and cultural experiences go away, core curriculum. Well, the teachers are working on that. How do we make ourselves relevant to core curriculum? So all of a sudden we get marginalized a little bit, and then you have a generation, or maybe two generations now, of teachers who did not have that experience. So they don't feel comfortable saying, let's go to the Art Museum, the Heard, the Science Center, wherever it might be.
Well, I'd like to get you back on before you finally say goodbye
Well,
there, but it's
I think it's going to take a little longer
Yeah.
than what we think.
but
I'd be
congratulations
happy to come
on
back.
many
Thanks so
decades
much.
of success.
Oh, you bet.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.